Hi, I'm Ken Kessler, and welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I want to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new, welcome back. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to say that there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, this is a topic I find myself turning to every year at this time. So despite what traditional radio and commercials and your local car dealerships and on and on and on, despite what all those folks tell you, the 12 days of Christmas actually come after Christmas. No, really. Those 12 days marks the time from Christmas Day to Epiphany, and I'm not going to get into the weeds of the religious history behind it, though if you're interested, you're welcome to check it out on Wikipedia, among many other places. I always mention this fact year after year, as it seems many people lose their enthusiasm for Christmas a day or two after. Jerry Seinfeld likened it to coming out of a drunken stupor where you suddenly realize there's a tree in your house and you're ready to just throw it anywhere, especially outside on the curb like the result of a mob hit. Obviously, I don't think that needs to be the case. For our first 10 years, the Sounds of Christmas stayed on through January 6th. And while there was a drop-off in listeners, it was surprising that so many people in so many different countries continued to listen. Listeners sent in emails and messages to me on social media asking us to stay on all year long. That seemed a bit much, and I went back and forth on whether we were going to really do that. But finally, a few years ago, I decided to give it a try. Surprisingly, aside from that initial drop-off after Christmas Day, thousands continued to listen all over the globe. I know some people don't like the idea of year-round Christmas music, and I get that. It's not for everybody. Some don't like it before Thanksgiving or before December 1, and some don't like it at all. That's okay. No one is making you listen. But for those who do enjoy it, the Sounds of Christmas is here for you. Anytime you need some Christmas spirit, just click on the player on the website or in the app and enjoy it as the Sounds of Christmas turns the 12 days of Christmas into 12 months. Well, 11 months plus Halloween. As far as the song, The 12 Days of Christmas goes, there are lots of versions of it. Not just different artists and different arrangements, but actual different versions where the 12 items are in different order or the items are actually replaced with other things. The song was originally published over 200 years ago, and this was the original order. 12 lords a-leaping, 11 ladies dancing, 10 pipers piping, 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. Those lyrics were printed somewhere around 1760. In the early 1900s, the lyrics were published with a few changes. The 4 collie birds became 4 calling birds. Collie had meant black, like coal, so those were basically blackbirds. And the change to calling birds made the subtle shift that those were songbirds, not necessarily blackbirds. The ladies dancing moved from 11 to 9. Lords a-leaping moved from 12 to 10, pipers piping moved from 10 to 11, and drummers drumming moved from 9 to 12. No one seems to know why those changes were made. Briefly, in the mid-1800s, pipers piping became fifers fifing. Shortly after that, the pipers were replaced briefly with ships sailing. The ladies dancing became ladies spinning, and the lords a-leaping became bells ringing. While those all shifted back a few years later, other changes crept in. French hens became fat hens. The collie birds became ducks quacking, and the gold rings became hares running. Then those changes went back, and the geese a-laying switched to ducks a-laying. The maids a-milking became hares a-running, and the drummers drumming were replaced with badgers baiting. The 1870s found the badgers replaced with lambs a-bleating, and the lords a-leaping became lords a-leading. In the 1880s, the final 5 gifts were hares a-running, bulls a-roaring, men a-mowing, dancers a-dancing, and fiddlers a-fiddling. In the 1890s, the partridge was temporarily replaced with a very pretty peacock, and the lords a-leading became lads a-loping. In 1900, squabs a-swimming, hounds a-running, bears a-beating, and cocks a crowing were all added. A few years later, boys a singing and asses a racing were introduced. In 1909, the standard that we hear today, for the most part, seemed to be accepted. 12 drummers drumming, 11 pipers piping, 10 lords a leaping, 9 ladies dancing, 8 maids a milking, 7 swans a swimming, 6 geese a laying, 5 gold rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. When I mention all these changes that happened in the 17 and 1800s, I should mention that there have been publications of those verses with those changes, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were preferred or more in use than other versions. We just know about them. Bing Crosby and the Andrews sisters are credited with recording one of the earliest versions of the song. That was in 1949. Perry Como recorded a version of it in 1953, but switched around the lords a leaping, ladies dancing, and pipers piping. Many other artists have recorded it in the years since, and the order of those last 4 or 5 gifts is often switched around. Pentatonics did that a few years ago, and I didn't know the song's history and instead just got annoyed at them for changing it around. I had no idea that people have been changing that around for hundreds of years. So Pentatonics, if you're listening, I apologize. In 1984, the PNC Wealth Management Bank in the United States began publishing the Christmas Price Index, which computed the entire value of all the gifts in the song. However, this was only for the one gift mentioned on each new day in the song, instead of adding up all of the gifts, meaning by the end, there should be 12 partridges and 12 pear trees, since one was given each day. They created a second index because of this to reflect those totals, which they called the true cost of Christmas. In 1984, the true cost of Christmas was determined to be $61,318.94. In 2021, the true cost of Christmas has risen to $179,454.19. Regardless of how much you spend on partridges and pear trees, or if there are pipers or fifers, the main thing I hope you take away from all of this is that the 12 days of Christmas come after Christmas. So don't let anyone tell you that you should stop listening to Christmas music, even though traditional radio stations and most stores and other places where music is played have all stopped. In fact, since we're on year round, you don't ever have to stop. If Christmas music brings you joy, we're here for you. Anytime you want to listen and get a little Christmas spirit, whether it's December 29th or January 5th, or for that matter, March 5th or June 5th, the Sounds of Christmas will keep playing the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October, when we play the best variety of Halloween music. Thanks so much for listening, helping me share some Christmas spirit, and helping this podcast continue to grow. Since you're listening now, you've obviously found us somewhere. But if there's another site you like to use for podcasts, check out our podcast page on our website for the complete list of everywhere you can listen to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. And the website is soundsofchristmas.com. Then just click on the podcast tab. For the Sounds of Christmas station, to listen to the music, you'll need to stick with our website or our app in the Google Play Store. If you have comments or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through the website. Thanks again. And may you always believe in Santa Claus.